Praise and glory be to God, the Almighty King of the universe, and peace and blessings be upon His noble prophets and messengers. Peaceful greetings to you, my dear brothers and sisters, and welcome to a new episode of Beloved Acquaintances. And in today's show, we're going to talk about a companion who goes by the name of Muawiya ibn Muawiya al-Mizani. Muawiya, son of Muawiya. And this Muawiya is not a famous companion. He's not a popular figure. He wasn't well known. He doesn't have any heroic stories or legendary achievements like some of the other companions that we're going to talk about in future episodes. So you may be tempted to believe that he's not that important. But before you go on thinking that, before you make that judgment, it may be interesting to note that this companion had strong ties with God. God cherishes this Muawiya. There are people in this world who are of this nature. They're just like that. They remain unnoticed amongst us. You may not recognize them. They have no impact, no effect on anybody. And so we think that they're insignificant. But the reality is, brothers and sisters, that they are precious in God's eyes. They got connections with the one above. Some of us have this impression that the best or most religious person is he or she who talks out, man. You know, who talks about religion a lot. Or the best person is the one who's got a lot of knowledge, or reads a lot, or leads us in prayer. Oh, he leads the people in prayer? That means he's better than all of us. But that's not true, people. I'm not saying that these things are not important. Please don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is that the closest one to God is that person who's keen, who's eager to do what God has asked of us. That person who's sincere with God, the one who's got a relationship of love and devotion with the Almighty. There can be a girl listening to this lecture who we pay no attention to, but who is dearer to God than all of us. And Muawiya was just like that. Nobody knew his true worth. Nobody knew how valuable he was to God until the day he died. And the story that I'm going to tell you about Muawiya is just based on what happens the day that he dies. Why? Because he was always unnoticed, man. History doesn't tell us anything else about him. So what happened? He basically lived a righteous life in the company of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And there came a battle called the Battle of Tabuk. And this battle was to take place at a faraway distance. So it was very difficult, tiring, and exhausting. And of course, Muawiya was going to go fight alongside the Prophet. But as he was about to leave with the army, he was hit by severe fever. The guy was in pain, and the treatment that he was getting wasn't having any effect on him. And it seemed like he was going to die because of his sickness. So naturally, the Prophet asked him to stay behind. And so Muawiya remained in Medina, and the Prophet left to the Battle of Tabuk. Now the Prophet and the Muslims won the battle. Back at home, though, Muawiya's fever was getting worse and worse, and he was dying. And one cold and dark night, while the Prophet and his companions were at Tabuk, at a distance of 1,000 kilometers from Medina, Muawiya passes away. And on that night, the angel Gabriel comes down from the heavens and says to the Prophet, "O Muhammad, get up and pray right now for the soul of Muawiya ibn Muawiya. Muawiya has died in Medina." Yo, hold on a minute. You're telling me that the angel Gabriel comes down from the heavens and asks the Prophet of God to pray for a guy that wasn't known amongst the companions for anything? What the heck? Not only that, there were 2 rows of angels waiting to pray behind the Prophet for Muawiya's soul. Man, is it possible? Is it possible for a human to be so valuable in the eyes of God? Could one of us be so beloved to the Creator of the heavens and the earth? Now people, I know what's going on in your minds. I know what you're wondering. You're thinking, what did this guy do to deserve all this? And the Prophet asked the same question. He said, Gabriel, how did Muawiya earn this status? What did he do? Listen to the answer. Gabriel says, O Prophet of God, Muawiya is a man who loves Surah Qul Huwallahu Ahad. He loves the 112th chapter of the Qur'an that starts off with, say he is Allah the One. Gabriel continues, he reads it standing and sitting, during the day and during the night. He reads it all the time. And as a result, he gets 2 rows of angels to pray for him. Qul Huwallahu Ahad does that? You know that chapter of the Qur'an. We all know it. It's like one of the shortest chapters. We read it too, man. We read it to catch the 8 o'clock soap opera. We read it during evening prayers so that we can finish quickly. Right? Come on, guys. Let's be honest. And it's not rare that some of us read this short chapter for all our prayers. And it's not far-fetched that we've been reading the same chapter for every prayer for the past 20 years. But this same chapter that we take for granted, the same letters, the same words, it makes 2 rows of angels come down to earth because some guy died. Why? How is it possible? Was he reading it differently from us? Well, let's try reading it like him. Let's listen to it as he would hear it, how he would feel it. Qul huwa Allahu ahad. Say he is Allah the One. What does one mean? It means there's nothing in my heart more precious to me than God, because He is one. And there's nothing dearer to my heart than He, because He is one. And there is nothing more important in my life than He, because He is one. And I would never put my desires or what I feel like doing above His commandments, because it's not right, people, because He is one. Qul huwa Allahu ahad. Allahu samad. Allah, the self-sufficient being whom all creatures need, the one who we turn to in times of difficulty, in times of distress. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. He does not beget, nor is he begotten. He doesn't have no children, nor was he ever born. He is the first. He's the creator, the originator of this universe. There was nothing before him. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. And there is none like unto him. There's nothing like him. Nobody's as generous as he. Nobody's as gracious as he. Nobody's as merciful as he. Imagine, this is قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. This is the meaning? Do we experience this meaning when we're praying? Muawiya got 2 rows of angels because he was feeling قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. And so after listening to Muawiya's very short story, let's ask ourselves a question. What is our relationship with the Qur'an? Do we understand it? Do we get anything when we read it? Do we interact with it? How come there are boundaries between us and the Qur'an? You may say that it's the language barrier. We don't speak Arabic, man. Hey, that's a valid point. Then let me give you all some advice. And this is advice that works because I myself have put it to the test. And it worked for me. Guaranteed, people. So try it out as well. Memorize some verses of the Qur'an in Arabic. Any verses you want. From your favorite chapter, from the smallest chapter, from the biggest chapter of the Qur'an, whatever you like. And then memorize the meaning of these verses in the language you're most comfortable with. So, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ is the Arabic verse, and the English translation is, say He is Allah the One. Now, if you're praying, every time you read the Arabic verse, stop, translate it to English in your mind, and then take a moment to think about it. Contemplate about what you just read. And I assure you, the more and more you read a verse using this technique, the more appreciation you're going to have for the Qur'an. And the more you're going to understand it and taste its beauty. You're going to love it. You know why? Because God is going to bless your efforts. And He's going to hold your hand as you make an attempt to move closer to Him. You know, another example of somebody who felt the Qur'an was Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second Khalifa of Islam. If you don't know who he is, then don't worry, because we're going to talk about him a little bit later. But I just want to show you how the Qur'an impacted him. Once he was walking in the streets, and he passed by a house and heard the following verses being read. إِنَّ عَذَابَ رَبِّكَ لَوَاقِعٌ مَا لَهُ مِنْ دَافِعٍ. Most surely the punishment of your Lord will indeed come to pass, and there shall be none to prevent it. After hearing this verse, he collapsed. He collapsed, man. Can you imagine how much impact one verse had on him? One verse? He fell on the floor, so they carried him home. They didn't know what was wrong with him. He was unconscious, people. These people reacted with each word. The Qur'an had an emotional impact on them. So if they heard a verse that started off with, "O you who believe," they would stop and say, "It's talking to me. God is talking to me. O you who believe means me. I'm a believer." So they would listen with their ears and hearts. So what is Muawiya's story telling us? We got to deal differently with the Qur'an, people. We have to feel it. We have to live it. We have to love it. Simple as that. So I want all of us to give an effort. All of us to try. I want to feel the Qur'an. I want to read it like Muawiya read it. I want it to impact my life. And once God sees that you're trying, He's going to carry you through. Just watch and see.